You never mean to fall into an obsession. It always starts small, quiet, almost harmless. A message, a memory, a voice you hear in the back of your mind when the world gets too loud. You tell yourself it's normal. You tell yourself you're in control. But then you wake up one morning and realize you're thinking about them before your eyes even open. And the day isn't shaping around your plans anymore. It's shaping around the ghost of someone who isn't even here. That's what happened to me. I didn't plan to carry them everywhere I went. I didn't plan for the sound of their laugh to disturb my sleep months after they left. I didn't plan to keep replaying the same memories like scratched vinyl that never stopped spinning. But somehow their absence became louder than their presence ever was. I used to believe time heals everything. Now I know time does nothing if your heart keeps reopening the same wound. Some nights I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, replaying old conversations, things I should have said, things I wish I never said, moments where I should have walked away, moments where I should have held on tighter. But the past doesn't negotiate. It doesn't let you trade your regrets for rewrites. It just sits there heavy like a weight on your chest, daring you to breathe through it, and I couldn't. So I did what most people do when they're haunted by someone they can't have anymore. I tried to run from the memories, distract myself, keep busy, pretend. But the truth is, you can be surrounded by people and still feel like you're sitting with a ghost. It's a cruel thing. Missing someone who probably hasn't thought about you once today. It turns your mind into a labyrinth full of dead ends that all lead back to them. You start analyzing everything, every word, every look, every silence. You try to find reasons, closure, meaning, and when you can't, you start blaming yourself. Was I not enough? Was I too much? Did I do something wrong? Is there something wrong with me? Why can't I be the kind of person who lets go easily? There were days I convinced myself I was better. Days where I'd wake up with a little more air in my lungs, a little more strength in my spine. But healing doesn't travel in a straight line. Some days you feel like you're climbing out of the dark. Other days, one tiny thought pulls you right back into it. And no matter how strong I tried to be, the memories kept winning. There was this one afternoon, cold, gray, the kind of day where the sky looks like it forgot how to shine. And I found myself driving without direction. I wasn't thinking. Not really. I was just moving because sitting still felt unbearable. The city looked unfamiliar. The buildings, the people, the sounds. None of it connected. It was like I was watching life from behind a glass wall. I ended up parked behind an old grocery store staring at the cracked steering wheel under my fingertips. And I asked myself something I never thought I'd say out loud. How long am I going to live like this? How long was I going to let somebody who's not even here anymore control the temperature of my heart? I didn't have an answer. But that moment, that breaking point, cracked something open inside me, not enough to heal, not enough to forget, but enough for a whisper to slip through the cracks. You have to let them go. But that's the thing no one tells you about letting go. It's not a single decision. It's 100 decisions every day, sometimes every hour. You let go of a memory, then a habit, then the way you say their name in your mind, then the way you imagine them when you're lonely. You let go of the version of them you created in your head and the version of yourself you were when you loved them. It's not easy. It's not quick, but it's necessary. And so I started with the simplest thing, a confession. I told myself the truth. I am hurting. I miss them. And I don't want to live like this. You can't heal what you refuse to admit is broken. And for the first time, I stopped lying to myself. I stopped pretending I was over it. Stopped pretending I was fine. Stopped pretending I didn't care anymore. There's a strange kind of freedom in honesty. It doesn't fix the pain, but it gives you room to breathe around it, room to understand it, room to grow past it. I realized something that day, something simple but brutal. Missing someone doesn't mean you should keep them. Wanting someone doesn't make them right for you. Loving someone doesn't guarantee they will stay or care or understand what your heart carries. And sometimes, the person you can't stop thinking about is the exact person you're meant to walk away from. That hurt more than I wanted to admit. But it was a truth I had to face, a truth that wouldn't let me hide anymore. Because you don't lose yourself all at once. You lose yourself piece by piece every time you put someone else above your own peace, every time you let love turn into punishment, every time you let memory hold you hostage. I didn't want to disappear like that, not anymore. So I made a quiet promise to myself. I will not let this break me. I will not let this control me. I will not let this be the end of my story. Letting go wasn't about forgetting them. It wasn't about hating them. It wasn't about pretending the love never existed. It was about choosing myself again. And maybe choosing myself for the first time in a long time. But choosing yourself isn't a loud event. It doesn't come with fireworks or applause. It comes quietly, in small choices that feel insignificant at first, like waking up and deciding not to check their social media, like deleting a photo you've held onto for too long, like catching yourself, daydreaming about them and gently pulling your mind somewhere else, like breathing through the ache instead of feeding it with what-ifs. The world keeps turning even when you feel stuck, and eventually you realize that staying in the same place, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, is the real heartbreak. Not losing them. Losing yourself. I started noticing the little moments where life tried to reach me again. A warm morning light slipping through the blinds, a stranger holding the door open, a smile from someone I barely knew. Tiny reminders that the world hadn't ended, even though it felt like it had. That's when the truth hit me. I wasn't grieving them anymore. I was grieving the version of myself I became when I loved them. The desperate version, the hopeful version, the broken version, the version that believed love alone could fix everything. Letting go meant letting that version die so another one could take its place. Some nights the loneliness still punched through my ribs. It showed up like an old friend who didn't know when to leave, but I stopped fearing it. Loneliness isn't the enemy. It's the doorway to rediscovering who you are without someone else defining you. One night I sat in my dim living room wrapped in a blanket that still smelled like old memories, and I asked myself something I'd never asked before. What if the person I can't stop thinking about isn't the one who got away? What if they're just the one who was meant to teach me something? I didn't know it then, but that question changed everything. Because some people come into your life to be a chapter, not the whole book. Some people come to wake something inside you and then leave so you can learn how to carry it on your own. They weren't meant to stay. They were meant to shape you. Once I understood that, something loosened inside me, not healed, not erased, just loosened. Enough for breath to slip through, enough for me to stop searching for them in places where they no longer existed, enough to stop punishing myself for loving someone who wasn't meant to be mine. Letting go didn't mean forgetting. It meant accepting the truth without fighting it anymore. They're gone. The door is closed. The story is written. And I don't need to rewrite it anymore. There's a strange beauty in surrendering to what is. It's not weakness. It's release. It's saying, I choose peace over pain. I choose the present over the past. I choose me over the memory of you. I didn't know where my life was heading next, but I knew it couldn't stay frozen in the moment they walked away. One afternoon, I walked outside, looked up at the sky, the same sky that felt suffocating just weeks before, and it didn't feel so heavy anymore. It felt open, like the world was giving me a second chance, a quiet invitation to start again, not with them, with myself. That's when I made the decision that truly marked the beginning of letting go. I stopped waiting for them to come back. Healing doesn't start when they leave. Healing starts when you stop expecting them to return. It's a different kind of liberation, a painful one, but a real one. Because once you stop waiting, you start living. You start rebuilding the parts of you that went quiet when they left. You start remembering the dreams you abandoned. You start noticing the sunsets you ignored. You start recognizing the strength you didn't know you had. Letting go isn't a moment. It's a new way of moving through the world, a way where your heart slowly learns to beat for you again, where your thoughts stop orbiting someone who isn't here, where the memories become softer, less sharp, less demanding. And one day, not suddenly, but quietly, you wake up and realize they're not the first thought in your mind anymore. You don't panic at the silence. You don't reach for your phone. You don't feel that familiar sting under your ribs. You just breathe, normally, fully, deeply. And for the first time in a long time, it feels enough. That's when you understand the secret no one tells you. You don't let go all at once. You let go in small pieces, softly, gently, completely. And those pieces, once released, make room for something new, something honest, something that belongs to you, not to the shadow of someone else. Hope doesn't arrive knocking on your door. It grows slowly inside you like a light returning to a room you forgot how to enter. And as that light spreads, you realize you're not losing anything. You're finally getting yourself back. There's a strange stillness that happens after you begin to let go. Not peace, not closure, just quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like the world is holding its breath, waiting to see what you'll become now that you're no longer orbiting someone else's gravity. I wasn't healed, not even close. But something inside me was shifting slowly, like ice cracking after a long winter. I thought letting go meant forgetting them, erasing them, scrubbing their name off every corner of my mind. But that wasn't it at all. Letting go started with learning how to live without constantly reaching for something that wasn't reaching back. It meant waking up and choosing to do one small thing for myself. Some days that was brushing my hair. Some days it was walking outside for 5 minutes. Some days it was drinking a glass of water because I realized I'd been living dehydrated since they left. Tiny victories, ones no one else would ever see or understand, but they mattered. Because when you lose someone you can't stop thinking about, your world shrinks. Your routine becomes survival. Your confidence dissolves. Even simple things feel impossible. But each small step forward was a rebellion against the version of me that believed my life ended when they walked away. It didn't end. It paused. And now I was learning how to press play again. There was a morning, colder than usual, when I woke up before the alarm. The sun hadn't risen yet. The room was still blue and quiet. And for the first time in months, my first thought wasn't them. It wasn't anything profound. Just a simple, ordinary thought about needing to get groceries. But it felt like a victory, a sign that my mind was slowly rewiring itself. I got out of bed and sat by the window, pulling my knees to my chest as the sky lightened, and a realization hit me with surprising softness. Healing doesn't feel like you expect it to. It's not a rush of strength or a triumphant moment. It's subtle, silent, easy to miss if you're not paying attention. It's the absence of pain where pain used to live. But healing also brings something uncomfortable, a new kind of emptiness. Because when you finally loosen your grip on someone, your hands feel empty, your heart feels quiet, your life feels wider than you know how to handle. Letting go doesn't just create space, it exposes all the parts of your life you've been ignoring. And suddenly, there's nowhere to hide. I had to face the truth I'd been avoiding since the beginning. It wasn't just them I lost myself while trying to keep them. I lost my routines, my optimism, my self-worth, my voice. Pieces of me dropped away each time I prioritized their comfort over my own peace, and letting go meant finding those pieces again. Some were buried under old guilt, some were wrapped in shame, some were trapped inside unrealistic expectations I placed on myself, but they were still mine, waiting for me to pick them up. So I did, slowly, awkwardly, clumsily, Healing isn't graceful. It's messy, it's emotional. It's waking up some mornings feeling proud of your progress, and other mornings feeling like you've fallen right back into the memories you thought you buried. But even on the worst days, I noticed something was different now. Before, the pain felt like drowning. Now it felt like learning to breathe underwater. I wasn't okay yet, but I wasn't broken anymore, just rebuilding. One evening I sat in the car outside a quiet cafe watching people come and go through the fogged up windows. Couples, friends, strangers laughing about things I didn't know. Life moving forward. And there I was, stuck in my own mind, replaying old memories I couldn't change, but then a thought slipped in, quiet and undeniable. They are living their life right now. Why am I not living mine? That question didn't hurt me. It freed me. Because letting go isn't a rejection of the past. It's an invitation to the future. A future where my happiness isn't tied to someone who isn't here. A future where my worth isn't determined by someone else's choice. A future where I don't shrink myself just to fit into someone else's heart. I took a breath, slow, deep, steady, and walked into the cafe. Not to replace them, not to distract myself, but to exist in the world again. I ordered a coffee, sat near the window, watched the streetlights blur in the evening drizzle, and something inside me said, "You're allowed to start again." That's the part of letting go no one talks about. The part after the grief, after the anger, after the ache. The part where life quietly asks, "Okay, who do you want to be now?" I didn't know yet, but I knew who I didn't want to be anymore. The version of me that waited, longed, clung, suffered, settled for crumbs of affection because I believed crumbs were all I deserved. No more. Letting go felt less like losing them and more like returning to myself. But returning doesn't happen in one step. It happens in 100 little decisions that remind you of your own worth. Turning off the sad song because it keeps you stuck. Saying no to someone who reminds you of old patterns. Setting boundaries you used to be afraid to set. Breaking a habit that kept you tied to their memory. Forgiving yourself for the things you didn't know back then. One night while cleaning out a drawer, I found something small of theirs tucked between old receipts and dried pens. Something meaningless to the world, but once meaningful to me. For a moment, my breath caught, memories surged, my chest tightened the way it used to, but then the wave passed. I didn't fall apart. I didn't collapse. I didn't lose control. I just looked at it, really looked, and wondered how something so small once had so much power over me. And in that moment, I realized the grip it had on me was gone. I didn't need it. I didn't need them. I didn't need the past. So I placed it gently in a box of things I no longer needed to carry. And I let it go. Not with pain, not with anger, with acceptance. That was the moment I understood the truth. You don't let go when the past disappears. You let go when the past stops controlling the present. But acceptance doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in small waves, washing over you gently, testing the edges of who you're becoming. Some waves are calm. Some knock the breath out of your lungs. But each one brings you a little closer to the shore, and slowly, you start wanting things again. Not them, not the past, not the fantasy you held on to for too long. You start wanting pieces of yourself. New moments, new peace. New chances to breathe without remembering the weight you used to carry. I began noticing things I hadn't noticed in months, the way the morning air felt on my face, the sound of my own laughter, fragile, unsure but real, the softness of small routines returning, cooking dinner, sitting outside, letting music fill the spaces that used to ache. Life was becoming something I wasn't just surviving, something I was slowly participating in again. Even the loneliness changed. It didn't feel sharp anymore. It felt spacious. Like my heart had room now. Room to grow. Room to rest. room to imagine a future that didn't revolve around a single name. There was a moment, late evening, the sky bruised purple, when I found myself sitting on the floor of my room surrounded by things I had once kept for comfort. Old notes, screenshots, tiny pieces of a story I had been trying to rewrite long after it ended. I touched each one lightly, almost with gratitude. These were not mistakes. These were not burdens. These were pieces of a chapter that helped me understand what I deserved by showing me what I didn't. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at them, not at myself. The past felt distant, like looking through a window into a house I no longer lived in, so I made a decision. Simple, quiet, but powerful. I gathered every piece of the past, placed them into a single box, and closed it. Not to throw away, not to burn, just to acknowledge the story had ended. Not every ending needs destruction. Sometimes it just needs closure. And as I sealed the box, something inside me unsealed. A breath I didn't know I'd been holding finally released. The world didn't shift dramatically, the air didn't glow, but my chest felt lighter, my thoughts felt freer, and for the first time, I felt ready. Ready to live without waiting, ready to feel without fear, ready to exist without clinging to someone who wasn't mine anymore. Letting go isn't losing love. It's learning that love doesn't have to hurt, that your heart deserves softness, not struggle, that you can miss someone and still move forward, that you can care about someone and still choose yourself. And the moment you choose yourself, truly choose yourself, the world opens in ways you never expected. I started dreaming again, not about them, about me. About the life I wanted, the places I wanted to see, the people I had yet to meet, the version of myself I was slowly growing into, and the beautiful thing, I didn't feel guilty for it. Healing doesn't erase the past, it just stops the past from erasing you. As weeks passed, I noticed something else, something even more surprising. The memories stopped hurting. They were still there. Still soft, still human. But they no longer carried knives. They no longer pulled me backward. They no longer dictated how I felt when the sun rose and when it set. They became what they were always meant to be, a chapter, not a cage. And one morning, warm, calm, full of possibility, I woke up and realized something I never thought I'd feel again. I was excited. Not for anyone, not for anything specific, just excited to be alive. That's the final stage of letting go, the stage people never talk about because it's quiet and gentle, not dramatic or loud. It's the moment when your heart stops grieving what was and starts reaching for what could be. You don't celebrate it. You don't announce it. You don't even notice it right away, but it's there in the way you smile at your reflection, in the way you talk to yourself kindly, in the way you stop replaying old conversations, in the way you stop needing answers that never came, in the way you finally start imagining a future without the shadow of a name attached to it. And that's when you know, truly know, that you've done it. You let go. Not perfectly, not painlessly, not instantly, but completely. Because letting go isn't forgetting someone you can't stop thinking about. Letting go is remembering yourself again. And once you remember yourself, you never go back. There's a strange moment in every healing journey where you realize the world kept moving even when you didn't. People laughed. People fell in love. People planned their futures while I was still stuck in yesterday trying to fix a story that no longer belonged to me. But the world doesn't slow down for heartbreak. It doesn't pause for the people you miss. It doesn't give back the days you spent waiting for someone who wasn't coming back. The world keeps spinning, and sooner or later you realize you have to start spinning again too. That's where I was, standing between who I used to be and who I might become, feeling like I was walking on a tightrope between memory and possibility. The hardest part wasn't losing them. It was losing the version of myself who believed love alone could save everything. I wanted to find myself again, but I didn't recognize the person in the mirror anymore. Not because I was broken, but because I had been changed. Pain changes you quietly. Loss changes you slowly. Letting go changes you completely. And once you change, you can't go back to who you were before. So I started with something simple. I made space in my life. Real space, not just emotional space. I cleaned my room. I opened the curtains. I got rid of things that felt heavy, even if they had nothing to do with them. Old clothes, old notes, old parts of me that no longer fit who I was becoming. It felt like clearing a field that had been abandoned for too long, a place where something new could finally grow. But growth isn't comfortable. It stretches you. It challenges you. It forces you to confront the parts of yourself you avoided when love distracted you. For me, the hardest part wasn't the memories. It was the silence, because silence brings questions, and questions bring truth. Why did I carry them for so long? Why did they take up so much space in my mind? Why did I allow one person's absence to feel bigger than my entire life? The answers were painful, but they were necessary. I realized I had mistaken longing for love, attachment for connection, reflection for destiny. I had built a home inside a moment that was never meant to last, and when it ended, I kept living there anyway. Letting go meant walking out of that home finally, and stepping into a place I didn't recognize yet, a place called who I am without them. At first it felt empty, like walking through a house after the furniture has been removed, echoes everywhere, memories clinging to the walls. But emptiness isn't a curse, it's an invitation. When you lose someone you can't stop thinking about, you gain something too, a chance to rebuild yourself with clarity. I didn't rush it. Healing is not a race, and my heart wasn't a clock. Some days I moved slowly. Other days I didn't move at all. But even standing still was better than moving backward. I started small. A walk around the block. A meal that didn't taste like sadness. A playlist that didn't hurt to hear. A journal page filled with something other than their name. Little steps, tiny breaths, attempts at living again. And slowly the world softened. I noticed things I hadn't noticed before. The sound of leaves brushing against the window, the warmth of my coffee mug, the way strangers smiled at each other for no reason. These moments weren't big. They weren't dramatic, but they were real. And they reminded me that life wasn't asking me to forget, only to return. Return to myself. Return to hope. Return to the simple truth that I was still here. One afternoon, I walked through a small bookstore. I wasn't looking for anything. Maybe that was the point. Just wandering between shelves, letting the quiet embrace me. A book caught my attention. It wasn't about love, or loss, or heartbreak. It was about purpose. Finding meaning after life falls apart. I opened it to a random page, and the first line felt like someone had written it for me. You don't move on by chasing the past. You move on by stepping toward the future. The words didn't heal me, but they opened something inside me. I wasn't supposed to chase closure. I wasn't supposed to chase what-ifs. I wasn't supposed to chase someone who chose a different path. I was supposed to move toward something else, something that didn't hurt to hold. As I left the store, the air felt different. Not lighter, just clearer. Like I could finally see the difference between love that builds you and love that breaks you. And maybe the person I couldn't stop thinking about was never meant to be permanent. Maybe they were a mirror showing me what I needed to heal within myself. The truth is, some people come into your life not to stay, but to wake you up. They show you your wounds, your weaknesses, your patterns, your fears, and once you see them, you can't pretend you didn't. I began sitting with myself the way I used to sit with them, with attention, with care, with honesty. I listened to my own thoughts instead of trying to decode theirs. I cared about my own feelings instead of trying to manage theirs. And in those quiet moments alone, something stronger than closure began to take shape. Understanding. I understood why I held on. I understood why I couldn't let go. I understood why their absence felt heavier than their presence ever did. I wasn't tied to them. I was tied to the story I wrote around them. A story where they were the answer to all the loneliness I never dealt with, where they were the cure for wounds I never treated, where they were the future I was too afraid to build alone. Letting go meant rewriting that story, with me at the center this time. Not them, not the past, not the memory. Me. It wasn't easy, it wasn't fast, but it was real. And real healing is worth the struggle. There was one night, quiet, cool, with a soft breeze coming through the cracked window, where I caught myself smiling for no reason. Not because of them, not because of anything that happened, just because I felt alive, present, free. I still miss them sometimes. But missing someone and needing someone are not the same. Missing someone and holding on to them are not the same. Missing someone and losing yourself over them are not the same. I could miss them, I could care, I could remember, and still let go. Because letting go doesn't erase the past. It just stops it from controlling the future. And that was the future I was walking into, slowly, gently, bravely, not healed, but healing, not whole, but growing, not forgetting, but moving forward with open hands instead of clenched fists. The nights were the last thing to change. They always are, because nights hold the quiet, and the quiet holds everything you tried to outrun during the day. But slowly, even the nights softened. I stopped lying awake replaying conversations that ended long ago. I stopped reaching for the phone that never buzzed anymore. I stopped waiting for an apology I knew would never come. Instead, I just breathed. Some nights I talked to myself in the dark, not because I was lonely, but because it felt good to hear my own voice without it trembling. I reminded myself that healing wasn't about being strong all the time. It was about showing up for myself even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. Letting go didn't make me cold. It made me honest. Honest about what I needed. Honest about what I tolerated. Honest about who I became while trying to love someone who wasn't meant for my future. One evening after a long day, I walked outside just to feel the air. The sky was painted gold and violet, the kind of sunset that makes everything look softer, even the things that broke you. I stood there, hands in my pockets, watching the light fade behind the houses, and a strange thought settled over me. I survived something I thought would destroy me. That realization didn't come with pride or triumph. It came with quiet gratitude, because healing was never dramatic. It was slow, steady, invisible work, and I had done it. Day after day, night after night, without witnesses, without applause, without someone holding my hand through it. Just me. The same heart I once believed was too broken to heal was beating stronger now. The same mind I once believed was trapped in the past was finally learning to dream again. The same soul I once believed was tied to someone else's presence was rediscovering its own worth. I realized then that letting go wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of one. A story where my happiness wasn't negotiable, where my peace wasn't fragile, where my worth wasn't determined by someone else's attention. A story where I wasn't searching for someone to complete me, because I was already whole. Not perfect, not unscarred, but whole. And maybe that was the lesson I was meant to learn all along. Not how to forget them, not how to erase the memories, not how to pretend they didn't matter, but how to return to myself fully, softly, completely. The past would always be a part of me, but it wasn't a place I lived anymore. It wasn't my home. It wasn't my identity. It was a chapter, a lesson, a moment in time that shaped me, but didn't define me. As the sun slipped away and the sky darkened, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not hope for them. Not hope for the past. Hope for me. Hope for the life waiting to unfold. Hope for the love I hadn't met yet. Hope for the version of myself I was still becoming. Hope that the days ahead would feel lighter, and if they didn't, hope that I'd know how to carry the weight without breaking under it. Letting go isn't the art of releasing someone else. It's the art of reclaiming yourself. And in that moment, under the wide open sky, I realized something simple and beautiful. I had finally come home. Not to a person, not to a memory, not to a past I tried too long to revive. I had come home to myself. There's a strange calm that arrives after you return to yourself. Not peace exactly, peace comes much later. This is something quieter, something softer, a kind of stillness that says, you survived the storm. Now learn to live in the sunlight again. But sunlight can be frightening when you've lived in shadows for too long. I didn't know how to trust the good moments yet. Every time something felt warm, my mind whispered that it wouldn't last. Every time I laughed, I felt guilty, like I was betraying a version of myself that used to cry over someone who wasn't crying over me. Healing makes you cautious, careful, tender with the parts of you that were once ripped open. And even though I had let go of them, I hadn't fully let go of the person I became around them. That person was still lingering in my steps, in my thoughts, in the way my heart flinched whenever it felt too light. But growth doesn't ask for permission. It just keeps arriving, slowly, quietly, soft as the morning. I started noticing the small ways my life had expanded without me realizing. How I didn't check my phone the moment I woke up. How I stopped comparing myself to people I didn't even know. How I no longer replayed old memories like punishment. Even my reflection looked different. Not prettier, not stronger. Just present. Like I had finally arrived in my own skin after being a ghost in my own life. But letting go is more than feeling better. It's learning to rebuild the parts of yourself that were neglected while you were busy holding on to someone else. I had lost so much time. Time worrying, time waiting, time hoping, time imagining futures that were never going to happen. It was time to reclaim it. So I started exploring pieces of myself I had forgotten existed. Old passions, old dreams, old versions of me that felt like faint memories. I picked up a notebook and wrote without caring about structure or meaning. I sat in parks and listened to conversations that felt like pieces of life floating around me. I walked into stores without needing a reason. I let myself exist without constantly trying to survive. And the world felt new again. Not because it changed, but because I did. But growth comes with discomfort. And mine came unexpectedly. It happened on a night when I felt unusually calm. I had cooked dinner, played soft music, and sat on the balcony watching the city lights flicker in and out like fireflies. And then, their memory came back. Not painfully, not sharply. Just there. A shadow appearing in the corner of my mind. For a moment I felt that familiar tightening in my chest, the one I thought I had outgrown. But instead of drowning in it, I breathed. Deep, slow, steady. I didn't push the memory away. I didn't cling to it either. I just let it exist. Not as something I needed to fix or revisit, just as a piece of my story. That was the moment I knew I was changing. Because the memory didn't control me. It didn't break me. It didn't drag me backward. It passed through me like wind through an open door. That's what letting go truly feels like in the end. Not forgetting. Just no longer being held hostage. But there was one more truth I still needed to face. One more thing that would test just how far I had come. The truth was simple. I had no idea who I was without the pain. The pain had been my routine, my comfort, my identity, my companion. Without it, I felt strangely empty. Not the painful emptiness from before, a new emptiness, a clean slate. And starting over scared me more than losing someone ever did. But life has a gentle way of nudging you forward even when fear whispers you should stay. Still, one afternoon I took a walk outside. Nothing special, just a slow stroll under a warm sky. People passed me with busy footsteps, cars rushed by, a dog barked in the distance, everything felt alive. And out of nowhere, a thought came to me, quiet but firm. You deserve to be part of life again, not as someone recovering from the past, not as someone measuring their worth through someone else's eyes, not as someone healing, but as someone living. I didn't need to be perfect. I didn't need to be whole. I didn't need to have all the answers. I just needed to show up for myself every day in small ways. And slowly I started to. I cooked meals that tasted good. I bought clothes that made me feel comfortable instead of invisible. I went to places I once avoided because they reminded me of them. I made new memories that didn't need permission from old ones. And with each day, life felt less like something happening to me and more like something I was participating in. But there was one thing I still didn't fully understand. One thing that lingered quietly in the back of my mind. Why did someone who wasn't meant to stay become so important to me? The answer came one morning when the sunlight hit my room just right, warming the space the way hope warms a tired heart. I realized it wasn't them I held on to, it was the version of me who believed that love, even flawed love, was enough. The version of me who feared losing someone more than losing myself. The version of me who didn't yet know how strong I could be on my own. That version needed to learn, to break, to ache, to let go. So a stronger version could take her place. I didn't love the pain, but I respected what it taught me. Letting go wasn't about erasing the past, it was about making room for the future. A future where I mattered, where I chose myself, where my life wasn't shaped around someone who didn't stay. And that's when something unexpected happened. A feeling I had not felt in so long I barely recognized it. Curiosity. Curiosity for what comes next, for who I might become, for the people I hadn't met yet, for the chances waiting for me just beyond the edge of fear. Letting go didn't end the story. It opened the rest of it. Curiosity is a soft thing, almost shy at first. It doesn't rush in. It tiptoes, wondering if your heart is ready for something new, something different, something that doesn't taste like loss. For a long time, mine wasn't. But slowly, gently, it began to open. Not to someone else, to life. I found myself looking at things I once ignored. The way sunlight filtered through trees, the way strangers laughed with their whole faces, the way the world felt bigger than any hurt I ever carried. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't searching for them in the faces around me. I wasn't looking for their shadow in every quiet moment. I wasn't waiting for life to remind me of what I'd lost. I was letting life remind me of what I still had. My mind, my heart, my future, myself. That realization didn't arrive with fireworks. It arrived with calmness, like my soul had finally unclenched its fists after holding on for far too long. One night I stepped outside and felt the breeze wrap around me with a kind of softness that felt like comfort. Not comfort from someone else. Comfort from myself. I closed my eyes and let the air fill my lungs, and I whispered something I didn't expect. I'm proud of you. Not because I healed instantly, not because I never fell apart, but because I kept going, even when it felt impossible. I survived nights I thought would swallow me whole. I survived mornings I didn't want to wake up for. I survived memories that once controlled me. And in surviving, I found myself. Letting go wasn't a moment. It was a transformation. A slow unraveling of old pain, a steady rebuilding of who I wanted to become. I realized I didn't want the old version of myself back. She was too fragile, too hopeful in the wrong places, too willing to abandon herself for the idea of love. I wanted the new version, the one built from truth, the one stitched with strength, the one who understood that losing someone doesn't mean losing everything. So I stepped into that version. I didn't announce it. I didn't celebrate it. I just lived it, and little by little, my life began to feel like mine again. Not borrowed, not paused, not waiting. Mine. One morning, I passed a place that used to hurt. A street corner, a cafe, a memory frozen in time. But this time, nothing inside me broke, nothing twisted, nothing screamed. I looked at it the way you look at an old childhood home, with familiarity, with distance, with peace. That's when I understood the final truth of letting go. When the past stops hurting, it becomes wisdom. Not a wound, not a weakness, not a prison. Wisdom. And wisdom frees you. It frees you to love again someday, not from desperation, not from fear of being alone, not from wanting to fill a void, but from fullness, from clarity, from knowing that you are whole even before anyone else arrives. Letting go doesn't leave you empty. It prepares you for better days, better people, better love, better versions of yourself. As the sun rose behind the buildings, casting warm light across the street, I felt something soft settle into my chest. Not the ache I was used to, not the longing I once lived with. Something gentler. Peace. Not loud, not overwhelming, just steady, the kind that says, you made it out, and you're allowed to move forward now. So I took a step, then another. Not away from someone, but toward myself. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid. There comes a moment in healing when you stop looking backward entirely, not because the past disappears, but because the future finally starts calling louder than the memories ever did. That's where I found myself, standing between who I used to be and who I was becoming, no longer grieving, no longer waiting, no longer wishing the story had ended differently. For the first time, I wasn't trying to get over someone. I was learning how to step into myself. But stepping into yourself isn't simple. It means meeting the parts of you that hid when the hurt was loud. It means facing the dreams you abandoned because you didn't think you deserved them. It means understanding that the person you couldn't stop thinking about was never meant to be the center of your universe, just a chapter in it. A necessary chapter. A painful chapter, a chapter that ended exactly when it needed to. I didn't know what came next, but I knew it wouldn't be a repetition of what came before. I started waking up with a different feeling in my chest. Not dread, not longing, something lighter, something like possibility. I didn't rush to grab my phone anymore. I didn't replay old conversations, the silence that once felt suffocating. Now felt like space, room to breathe, room to think, room to grow. Healing didn't make my life perfect, but it made it mine. One morning I found myself sitting at a small cafe, the kind of place I used to avoid because it reminded me too much of the things I'd lost. But now it felt like a safe place to watch the world without feeling separate from it. People came and went. Laughter rose and fell. A soft breeze pushed through the open door. I stirred my coffee slowly and noticed something unusual. My mind wasn't drifting to them. It was drifting to myself, to my plans, my ideas, my life. I didn't realize how much space they occupied in my mind until the space was finally empty, and ready to be filled with something better. That realization hit me harder than the heartbreak ever did. I had been living in survival mode for so long that I forgot what living actually felt like. Healing wasn't just about letting go of someone. It was about letting go of the version of myself who believed that love had to hurt to be real. It didn't. It never did. And now I was learning what love for myself truly looked like. It looked like saying no. It looked like setting boundaries. It looked like choosing rest. It looked like forgiving myself. It looked like protecting my peace. But the most powerful thing it looked like was dreaming again. Dreams I once buried under heartbreak began to rise. Small ones at first, going somewhere new, trying something different, taking a risk without fearing the outcome, laughing without checking if it was allowed, hoping without apologizing for it. I started writing again. Not about them, not about the loss, about life, about who I wanted to be, about the version of myself I had forgotten in the noise of heartbreak. And writing opened something inside me, a truth I had ignored for too long. I was allowed to build a future that didn't include them, not out of bitterness, not out of anger, but out of acceptance. Acceptance that some connections are meant to break so you can finally break open. Acceptance that some goodbyes are the beginning of better hellos. Acceptance that losing them wasn't losing everything. It was losing the thing that kept you from becoming yourself. One afternoon, I sat in front of the mirror, not to judge myself, not to fix anything, just to look. For the first time, I didn't see someone who wasn't enough. I didn't see someone abandoned or forgotten. I didn't see someone defined by a story that ended. I saw someone who stayed, someone who fought, someone who grew, someone who kept moving forward even when it felt impossible. I saw resilience, not the loud, heroic kind, the quiet kind, the kind that whispers, "You'll be okay," even when the world feels heavy. And that's when I understood something I had never realized before. The person I needed to stop thinking about had already let go long before I did. And the only person I was hurting by holding on was me. That truth didn't break me. It freed me. Because letting go no longer felt like losing them. It felt like releasing a weight I was never meant to carry alone. Healing didn't erase the memories. It just removed their power. Healing didn't erase the love. It just returned it to where it belonged. To me. And the more I returned to myself, the less I needed closure from anyone else. One evening I walked along a quiet street lined with streetlights glowing like tiny suns. The air was calm, my heart beat steady. For once I didn't feel like I was running from the past or fearing the future. I was just here, present, awake, alive. A car passed, its headlights washing over me in a warm blur, and I thought, I made it. Not by forgetting, not by replacing, but by rebuilding, piece by piece, day by day, choice by choice. Healing wasn't an accident. It was a decision I kept making long after my heart stopped believing it was possible. And now, my heart believed again, not in someone else, in me. I didn't know what waited for me on the other side of healing. No one ever does. But I finally understood that healing doesn't give you your old life back. It gives you a new one. A life shaped by strength instead of scarcity. A life carried by clarity instead of confusion. A life led by self-respect instead of self-sacrifice. And the more I stepped into that life, the more I felt something unexpected blooming inside me. Peace. Not the fragile kind that breaks when someone leaves, not the temporary kind that comes from distraction, the real kind, the kind that stays. I could feel it in the way I started waking up without dread, in the way my shoulders finally rested instead of tensing out of habit, in the way silence no longer felt like punishment, but a place to rest. Healing made room for peace. Peace made room for hope. And hope made room for possibility. Possibility that life could still surprise me. Possibility that joy could return. Possibility that love, real love, could find me one day without breaking me first. But the most important possibility was this, that I could be enough for myself. I remember one night clearly, the night everything finally clicked into place. I was standing by my window, watching cars glide down the street like slow-moving constellations. The city hummed in the distance, alive in a way that didn't scare me anymore. I felt the weight of the past behind me. and the pull of the future ahead. For the first time, I wasn't torn between them. I whispered into the room, barely loud enough to hear, "I'm ready." Not ready for someone new, not ready for a big change, just ready for myself. Ready to live without carrying a ghost. Ready to breathe without bracing for pain. Ready to step forward without looking back. It wasn't a dramatic moment. It wasn't cinematic or loud. It was quiet, honest, real. And sometimes those are the moments that change you the most. I wasn't the same person who once clung to someone who didn't stay. I wasn't the same person who let memories dictate every emotion. I wasn't the same person who lost themselves trying to keep love alive. That version of me had been rewritten, refined by loss, strengthened by truth, softened by healing. Letting go didn't destroy me. It revealed me. And what I found beneath the hurt wasn't weakness. It was resilience. It was courage. It was hope. It was me. I didn't need their closure anymore. I didn't need their apology. I didn't need their return. What I needed was this feeling, this quiet certainty that no matter who left, no matter who stayed, no matter what the future held, I would be okay. Because I had learned the most important truth of all. You don't heal by forgetting someone you can't stop thinking about. You heal by remembering yourself more than you remember them. And I remembered myself now, fully, softly, completely. What once felt like the end of my story was only the beginning of one I was finally ready to write, with my own hands, in my own time, on my own terms. And as I stood there, breathing in the stillness of the night, I realized something beautiful. I wasn't holding on anymore. I wasn't breaking anymore. I wasn't waiting anymore. I was living. And maybe, just maybe, that was the greatest victory of all. There's a quiet turning point in every journey where you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And you start asking, well, what did it create inside me? That's where I was now, standing at the edge of the person I used to be, stepping into the person I never imagined I could become. Letting go changes you in ways you don't expect. It breaks you, yes, but it also rebuilds you with pieces that were always there, waiting to be discovered under layers of longing and fear. The pain that once swallowed me whole now felt like a shadow behind me instead of a weight on my chest. There were days I almost forgot what it felt like to miss them. And on the days I remembered, the memory didn't pull me under anymore. It passed through like a passing storm, loud for a moment, gone the next. Healing isn't a straight line, but it does move forward. And I was finally moving with it instead of fighting against it. One afternoon, I stood at the top of a hill overlooking the city, tall buildings, blinking lights, strangers rushing to places I'd never know. Life happening without hesitation. For a long time, I watched life from the outside. Now, for the first time, I felt like I belonged to it again. The wind brushed against my face, cool and steady, carrying away pieces of the old me I didn't need anymore. The version who begged for answers. The version who clung to memories. The version who forgot her own worth in the process of loving someone who didn't stay. I let the wind take all of them. Every fragile piece, every quiet ache, every unspoken apology I kept repeating to myself, all of it drifted away in that moment. And something new settled in its place. Strength, steady, solid, mine. Not the kind of strength that hardens you, the kind that softens you, makes you gentle with yourself, makes you kinder to the world, makes you believe that life still holds something beautiful for you, because it does. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid of it. Fear used to grip me. Fear of being alone, fear of never finding love again, fear of becoming a story that ended in heartbreak. But now, I feared wasting my life more than I feared being alone. I feared shrinking myself more than I feared starting over. I feared losing myself again far more than I feared losing anyone else. That shift was the real beginning of freedom. I started doing things not out of fear, not out of habit, but out of desire. Desire to grow, desire to feel alive, desire to experience life without comparing it to a ghost. So I explored. Not the world, not cities or countries. I explored myself. I explored my thoughts, my behaviors, the patterns that kept me stuck. I explored the wounds I ignored because loving someone felt easier than healing myself. I explored the dreams I had buried under someone else's importance, and each time I uncovered a piece of myself, I placed it back where it belonged. Not in their shadow, but in the light of my own life. That's when I realized something profound. The real loss wasn't losing them. It was losing the version of me that believed I wasn't enough without someone's love. And the real healing wasn't letting go of them. It was letting go of that belief. I wasn't searching for answers anymore. I wasn't searching for closure, for what ifs, for signs they still thought of me. I wasn't searching for anything outside myself. I was searching within. And I was finally finding what I'd been missing all along. One evening I sat alone on my couch, the city lights flickering through the window like quiet sparks. The room was silent, but it wasn't empty. It was full of something that once terrified me. My own company. And it felt good. Safe. Enough. I didn't need anyone to sit beside me for the moment to matter. I didn't need someone's attention to feel seen. I didn't need someone's love to feel worthy. The world inside me was blooming again. Slowly, softly, beautifully. And in that blooming, I discovered a truth I wish I had known years ago. Sometimes the person you can't stop thinking about is the person you were supposed to outgrow. Not to punish them, not to blame them, not to erase them, but because life needed to show you who you could become without them. And the person I was becoming, this version of me, felt like someone I was finally proud to be. Someone who could love deeply without losing herself. Someone who could let go without breaking apart. Someone who could face the future without fearing it. Someone who understood that being alone wasn't a failure. It was preparation. Preparation for a life where I didn't need saving. Preparation for a love that wouldn't require sacrifice of my soul. Preparation for a future rooted in self-worth instead of dependency. Everything I had lost led me back to myself. Everything that broke me rebuilt me in a way heartbreak never could. Everything I had once feared became everything I had conquered, and what once felt like the end of my world became the beginning of a new one. The night I finally understood how far I'd come wasn't dramatic. No storm, no breakdown, no sudden revelation that shook the earth beneath me. It was simple. I was brushing my teeth, half asleep, a towel wrapped around my shoulders. I looked up into the bathroom mirror, and for the first time in a very long time, I didn't see someone hurting. I didn't see someone abandoned. I didn't see someone replaying memories or searching for meaning in old wounds. I didn't see someone waiting for someone else to return and fix what never should have broken her. I saw someone alive, soft, strong, human, healing. And everything inside me paused, because for months, maybe longer, the mirror felt like a reminder of everything I'd lost. Now it reflected everything I had gained. A stronger spine, a steadier heart, a clearer mind, a softer soul. Pain didn't destroy me, it refined me. Letting go didn't empty me, it freed me. The past didn't define me, it shaped me. I wiped the mirror with my hand, watching the condensation clear, and I whispered something small, something honest, something I didn't even realize I believed until it left my lips. I'm okay now. Not perfect, not healed from every wound, not invincible, but okay. And okay was something I once thought I'd never feel again. The next day, I walked outside with a lightness in my chest that didn't feel borrowed or forced. It felt earned. The world looked brighter. Not because it changed, but because I did. I noticed people, their smiles, their joy, their stories happening quietly around me, and I didn't feel separate from them anymore. I felt connected, present, part of the living instead of part of the grieving. Even the air felt different, warmer, like an invitation instead of a reminder. And then something happened that proved the final stage of letting go had arrived. I heard their name, not in my head, not in a dream. I heard someone say it casually while talking on the phone behind me as I stood in line for coffee, the name that once shattered me, slid through the air like any other sound. No panic, no sting, no ache beneath my ribs, just a name, just a sound, nothing more. And that's when I realized I had taken all the power back. Their name no longer carried my past, my wounds, my longing, my heartbreak. It was just a name. And I was just a person who finally stepped out of the story that once held me hostage. I walked out of that cafe into sunlight that felt like a brand new beginning, not because life suddenly became easy, but because I became ready. Ready for the future. Ready for new experiences. Ready for real love someday. A love that wouldn't demand pieces of myself I should never give away. A love I wouldn't lose myself in. A love that wouldn't feel like survival. But most of all, I was ready for me. Ready to build a life that wasn't shaped around someone else's choices. Ready to chase dreams I once hid behind heartbreak. Ready to live on my own terms without apology, without fear, without looking backward. Healing didn't erase the past. It reclaimed my present. It restored my strength. It rebuilt my heart. It returned me to myself. And that's what letting go truly means. Not forgetting someone you can't stop thinking about us, but finally thinking about yourself more than them. I walked down the sidewalk, the sun touching my face, and something in me whispered a truth I will carry forever. I deserve a life that feels like mine. And for the first time in a very long time, I believed it.